Not sure if I'm live yet. Think I might be getting there. Takes a second for StreamYard to catch up. All right, I am live. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Welcome to Fae Fire. This is my first personal live stream that I've done. I've only streamed with my wonderful friends thus far, so this will be a kind of unique experience. So I'm glad you guys are here with me. And today we're going to be talking all about the rogue princes, Daemon and Aemond. Sometimes I end up saying Daemon, so that's their combo. But honestly, the men are two sides of the same sword. Let's be real here. So, um, yeah, thank you for being here, Lady Stoned Heart, and everyone else that's here. Say hello in the chat. I'm happy to have you here. So yeah, this should be a really fun conversation. Daemon and Aemond are my favorite characters. Of course, I love Rhaenyra and I am Team Black, but really the rogues are just the most fun. And they're handsome guys. That doesn't hurt anything. But they are the most fun. They are just crazy. They are unpredictable. You never know what's going to happen with the rogues. So let me turn down my ringer just in case. So yeah, we never know what we're going to get with these guys. And that's the most fun part. I mean, for real. I mean, the ending of episode 10 with Aemond, he obviously, if you haven't read the book, I'm sure that was a huge shock. But for those of us that have read the books, it was also still a huge shock. I mean, it's an interesting thing, the way they've kind of set up Aemond's character in particular, because he's kind of had that rough childhood experience. But of course, the same goes for Daemon, like that's why they're two sides of the same coin, and they both sort of suffered in similar ways. And it's, I mean, I think we can look at Viserys as sort of their personal like antagonist to them. Because their relationship with Viserys, both of them really shaped the men that they become, or that they have become. And Viserys really, with both of them, kind of rejected them a little bit or pushed them away when maybe they shouldn't have. But we see that happening so many times, especially with Daemon, but even with Aemond in his young age, like with the fight that happens with the boys. And when they take his eye, it's who's yelling at him but Viserys. He's like, well, who's telling you these things about the boys? And granted, the whole situation was a huge mess, but you're yelling at the kid who got his eye cut out. So we can see like where Viserys's priorities were when it comes to Rhaenyra and then his children with Alicent. There's definitely a divide. So yeah, so let's see. So be it, my love, 42, a new friend to the chat. And I did see your question, so we will get to that in just a little bit here. Lady Stoned Heart, I enjoyed the options of a different spin on the thoughts of A Song of Ice and Fire, symbolic, mythological, and religion-based. Yes, I do too. They are definitely including a lot of the symbolism, and that stuff was in Thrones, or at least it's written in the A Song of Ice and Fire series, but I think we're getting the visual on it a lot more in House of the Dragon, so that's really fun. I love it. So yeah, I loved that twist, but my heart was still racing from the intense scene. Are you talking about the Aemond scene? Yes. The end of the end of season 1 there. But yeah. Okay, so let's see. So yeah, I kind of made some different I made a list of some different topics we can talk about for each of the characters, so that we can kind of really dissect them and kind of see what's going on with each of them and how they kind of are paralleled, and also just what we can expect from them in season 2. They have just added so much to these characters that's not in Fire and Blood, and I love it because it's complementary towards Game of Thrones and the A Song of Ice and Fire series. It's incorporating in all of these bigger lores. And honestly, it's just making the story so much more rich and much more fun than I was expecting it to be. Because I think we can all agree that, season 8 of Thrones kind of left something to be desired. And now we're kind of getting the full picture, and how it all kind of fits together. So it is a beautiful thing. So yeah. Hi Moni. Thanks for being here. Let's see. So, should we start with Daemon or Aemond? I don't know if you guys have a preference. I think all the cougar ladies can agree that Aemond is our new favorite because, well, he's just cute. And I can't help it, all right? I just can't. His sapphire eye and his respectful nature of women. So let's start with Aemond. Why not? Okay. So we can talk about a fun theory I made a video on called Helaemond, I guess you call it, which is Helaena and Aemond and the suspicion of them having an affair. So let me know if you guys have thoughts on that. But I think there were many clues. Sorry, I have like a fruit fly in here. There were many clues to the fact that they might be having a relationship behind Aegon's back. Granted, Aegon obviously is not paying attention to anything. He's off getting drunk and, going to these fighting pits of children and sleeping with random women and having bastard children and never being at home. No one knows where he is. Helena's like, I have no clue where he is, and she's not bothered by that. So I think that Aemond is sort of filling that gap for Aegon because he's just off doing whatever he wants. And so there is this idea that Jaehaerys and Jaehaera may actually be fathered by Aemond. And I think that creates a much richer situation when it comes to the future of the story, the future horrific scene. And I don't want to divulge too much on it, but I did make a video on this. So if you guys want to go watch it and have some of the details on that. But yeah, I think it makes the whole thing later that happens, because my thought is, we haven't seen Maelor, which is her third child, Helena's third child. So there's this chance now that Aegon's come home and he's playing the king that he might actually father Maelor. And so then we have Jaehaerys and Jaehaera fathered by Aemond, and perhaps Maelor fathered by by Aegon. So later, when Helaena chooses Maelor, it's like that much more kind of cruel in the situation. So I can see it happening. I think that it would be a great twist. But of course, regardless, I think also Helaena deserves somebody better than Aegon. I think we can all agree with that. Helaena is precious and we need to protect her. She's our cinnamon roll. So let's see. So they, there's also the scene in the dragon pit in episode 9 when Meleys bursts through. Honestly, that whole scene in the dragon pit, I really think Helaena is really putting out this vibe. Like she, the beast beneath the board situation, she knows what's going to happen. She won't even look at Aegon. Like she looks at him at first. She's given him kind of just like this stink eye, and she is not happy to be there. She knows something's coming. And then after that crown gets placed on his head, she will not look because she knows what's coming next. She's had the vision of it. And then after Meleys bursts through the floorboards, then she's fine. She faces Meleys like she knows Meleys will not burn her. So she kind of puts on like a more brave face, but also she like grabs onto Aemond's arm and he like stands in front of her and really protects her. So again, we see the connection. Not to mention also in that scene, she's wearing a blue dress, not green or black like the Hightowers or the Targaryens. She's wearing blue, and who is associated with blue but Aemond and his sapphire eye. So it's all like a lot of coincidences. And even going back to like their childhood, Aemond was always really nice to Helaena, always was like, treat her with respect when Aegon, sorry, was like, she's an idiot, and kind of thinking she's dumb. And so whatever. So Aemond always stood up for his sister. He always believed she was going to be queen. He said that even in their childhood. So he never believed that Rhaenyra would be queen. He always believed it would be Helaena. And so I think it's really interesting, kind of beautiful. And he's like really protective of her and the rest of his family. He's like the warrior of the family. So yeah. So, what do you guys think? Do you have any thoughts or opinions or any other like things that you caught between Aegon or Aemond and Helena? I'm sorry, I'm keep mixing them up, but yeah, let me check the chat here. Oh, let's see. Yeah. Yeah, they do. They always frame them together. They are sitting, and even like in the dinner scene, um Aemon's like watching when Helena goes to dance with Jace. He's just like watching the whole time. I saw this little video on Twitter where it's like, it's just like a quick little video. I wish I could have saved it because I just am it's so funny. But it's like Helena gets up and walks off with Jace, and then it shows Aegon, and he looks over to Aemond, and Aemond's sitting there. But like Aegon's caption is, Aemond is going to be so effing pissed. And then it shows Aemond and he's like, I am so effing pissed. So, anyways. um, yeah. So they put them together. There's a lot of them. Like, and we know that like Helena doesn't like to be touched because we saw that scene with her and Allison where she's like, don't touch me kind of thing. She gets all weird. But then in the dragon pit scene, she touches Aemond and like clutches onto his arm. So she's fine with touching him. She doesn't want her mother touching her. So yes, this so yeah, that is the case. Some spoilers, but yes, on the same day as Aemond and as our rogue princes, fight above the god's eye is the same day that Helena well, spoiler alert, throws herself from her own window and lands on the spikes of Maegor's Holdfast. So, yeah, that does happen on the same day, and I think that's really fascinating. I also believe that Helena wargs into Dreamfire in that moment. Because we've seen that with a lot of other characters in the story, and I made a video about this, and I had a lot of people that were like, she's not a warg, da 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 da. There's no way she could be a warg. Yeah, actually, there is. She's half Hightower. And we also don't know who Allison's mother is. So, I mean, regardless, she has first man blood, so she can warg. Like, the potential's there. It's just like Daenerys. Daenerys has first man blood, and she has the ability to warg. It makes their connection to their dragons even stronger, in my opinion. So when she dies, Dreamfire's over in the dragon pit across, town, and she wakes up and roars and like blasts fire and she shakes off her chains, or she shakes off a couple of them. So later in the story, she's able to break free from them more easily because she's already broken out of half of them. So, good question. I feel like I feel like I remember reading something like, I feel like they say that in Fire and Blood. I'm not positive, but I feel like there was something like that. They don't give us a lot of detail on Helena, and that's really interesting because they're giving us so much detail in the show and really fleshing out her character. She's another one of those. But yeah, in the book, I mean, they hardly really talk about her at all. So it is kind of interesting. So let's see. So yeah, I agree. So be it my love. Yes, I think that she and Aemond are so bonded because they come from this really messed up family. Like, Alicent's not a very good mother. She's not very attentive. And Otto, like, we can see how Helaena reacts to Otto when he goes in and like talks to her. She just like, she doesn't want to talk to him. She knows he's a bad person. She knows he's behind all of this stuff. Aegon is a terrible husband. And then, you know, what's sad is that she and Rhaenyra don't really have a relationship. In the book, I believe Rhaenyra, you know, she spares Helaena when all the stuff's going down. She's like, you know, not my sister. She calls her sweet sister or something, kind of like Cersei, my sweet sister. But no, because Helena's kind of simple and she's gone through so much trauma, and I think Rhaenyra, you know, is saddened by the fact that she doesn't have that relationship with her. Because if we remember, when Emma was pregnant with Balon, Rhaenyra was like, no, that's going to be a girl, and her name is Visenya. That's going to be my sister, you know, and like every young girl wants a sister like that. So it's just, it's, you know, sad that they didn't have the opportunity to build more of a relationship. And they just ultimately are like tortured by each other. It's sad. So, but yeah, Helaena and Aemond are very bonded. And I think that's due to like all the chaos of their family, that those two are kind of the most like sensible. They've also been kind of like the most affected by the chaos of their family, you know, and sort of get pushed on the back burner, like, you know, middle children or younger children can tend to happen. So, and also Aemond is a second son. He and Daemon are both second sons. So there's sort of that curse or whatever. Hi, Daisy. Nice to see you. It's been a long time. Thank you for being here. And Blue Thanos. So, what happens to Sir Harold Westerling? Good question. He dies in the book. I'm fairly certain that he like died when the Greens were taking over. I don't think it happened the exact same way in the book. I can't really remember, but yeah, I think it's different. And the question is, what's going to happen with him? Because actually, the guy that they have cast to play him, Graham McTavish, I believe is his name. He's a pretty like good actor, like well-known actor. So it is kind of surprising that he got such a small role. So again, I wonder if that's going to be another one that they flesh out. I'd love to see, because he's left the Kingsguard, to see him go to Rhaenyra, sort of like how we had Barristan go to Daenerys. Because Harold's been guarding Rhaenyra her whole life, you know, since she was a young child, and watching all of this go down, he's disgusted by the whole situation. So I'd love to see him just leave and it be a twist on what the Maesters wrote in Fire and Blood, like we're seeing with so many other situations. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that happens, Daisy. Yeah, YouTube does whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, it was before now. He's doing I think he is doing a Barristan. And I am happy for it. I think it'll be awesome. I think it's a great little touch, you know, where these Kingsguard knights are true to their princess. You know, these older men, they're like, I'm going to die with honor. I'm not going to die in this, like, whatever's going on, this fuckery. So, so yeah. So anyways, well, let's click through. Let me see what I got on my picture rolls here, because I just kind of, whatever. We're going to find out what comes up next. Oh, that one. Well, all right. So let's talk. We're going to switch up. We'll talk about Daemon. So we all love Daemon, but episode 10, he choked the shit out of his wife, and that's not very cool. So there he had his reasons. He was angry. He was here's the question, okay? And I actually talked about this. I made a video about Daemon, and there was an interview with Patty Considine that he talks about. There was a scene that was deleted that they filmed, that he tells, or he kind of tries to tell Daemon about the prophecy. He's feeling it out. And they said that the scene just didn't get the right feel when they were like filming it, because he was trying to talk to Daemon about prophecy, and Daemon's just like, oh, that's, that's hooey. He's not into prophecy, which I don't know. I question. But he doesn't end up telling him, or maybe he only tells him partly, or he just kind of feels out the situation. But anyways, Daemon was slightly aware of the prophecy. Who knows if it was all of the details, but Rhaenyra just assuming that he was unaware, like, is probably incorrect. But Daemon also, he's a man of action. He's not going to get caught up in the prophecy. I also believe that Daemon is more of a visual learner. And so he's more affected by the image of Aegon and his sister wives as the three heads of the dragon versus Viserys and his prophecy and his secret dagger, and everything's a secret, everything's hush hush. Daemon doesn't vibe with that. He's a man of action. He sees Aegon, who married his two sisters. He sees that, and everybody knew that. That was so impactful upon Westeros that they made laws around it. And so he sees that, and in his mind's eye, he's like, okay, what were they doing? How can I recreate this so that I can have the same effect, power, ability, and fulfill the legacy of our family? But he's doing it on a different level than what Viserys was doing. So Viserys and Rhaenyra operate off of prophecy, and I think it's all kind of like intertwined, and that's why you have to have the three heads of the dragon, because they all have their own strength. I think we have like your king, your warrior, and your queen or princess. So Daemon, Viserys, and Rhaenyra fit that three heads of the dragon model, but Viserys wasn't operating with that mindset. He was operating off of the mindset of the prophecy. He's operating off of secrecy. Hi, Mrs. Duncan the Tall. You better be here, girl. So he's operating off of a different idea, or framing it all off of a different idea, which is fine. But I also think that Daemon found a lot of stuff while he was living in Pentos in those books that he was studying that was like major important information. So, and perhaps he learned more about the prophecy there, or a prophecy, or what have you. But I mean, even the prophecy itself is a little bit questionable, because any dreams that the Targaryens get are slightly tainted or cursed, or, there's like a twist on them. Nothing's perfect. None of these things come out perfectly. And then you're passing along this ancient prophecy secret. It's a game of telephone, and it's just kind of a little bit unreliable. So I think that's why Daemon focuses more on the image of what you can see, what the example was, versus some secret knowledge that's being passed along. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how things, go, because the scene with Daemon and Rhaenyra, and he chokes her, is like, he's enraged in that moment, but Rhaenyra realizes why he's enraged. She's like, oh, he never told you. But then, like, later on, they're still working together, and then at the end of the episode, when after Luke is killed, Daemon, he's very tender. You can tell he's very tenderly goes to Rhaenyra. She can see across the room there's something wrong. She can see it on his face, because they're having a meeting, and she just stops, and the men are still doing whatever around her, but she's watching Daemon as he's walking towards her, because she knows something's wrong. She can see it all over his face. So they have this loving relationship. I think there's a lot of like, I don't necessarily think it's like as lustful, incestual or whatever. And I have my own theories about that with Daemon, which we are going to talk about here today. So yeah, but I think that they have a love and understanding and a familial, like, respect for one another, to, protect their legacy and their lineage. So Yeah, Rhaegar, I think he's more into the three-headed dragon theory. I think that Rhaegar probably found, some books at Summerhall and that kind of thing. I think a lot of the Summerhall vibes are, kind of are originating during the dance of the dragon, obviously, eggs and yada yada. So, yeah, this is interesting, Cece. Okay, so he says he's going to go to River Run to go see Lord Tully, and he flies off. This is kind of a weird thing. He flies off with the boys, but then he goes to the Dragonmont while the boys go to, their spots. And then afterwards, he learned, and like somehow he knows about about Luke being killed, and then he comes back and tells Rhaenyra. So we have a little bit of a gap where it's like, did he go to River Run? How did he learn about Luke? How did this sort of play out? There's a little bit of a fire of presentation here, in my opinion, on that. But I am glad too, I'm glad that he's the one that tells her. And we kind of get to see them sort of come back together after the choking scene, because that was a little rough. So let me switch pictures here and see what we got. This is another one from that same scene. Oh, well, here we go. Okay, so now let's switch it up. We'll talk about Aemond. Why not? Where did that go? Where did my picture go? Is it showing for you guys? It's not showing for me. Hold on. There it is. Okay. So, Aemond, ready to talk about him. If you guys have any questions too, drop it in the chat. And just let me know your thoughts on the rogue princes, because honestly, they're my favorite. We'll try and steer clear of spoilers, but I think it's impossible. So prepare yourselves. Let me see what this comment is here. Kylie, welcome. Okay, I thought it was interesting how Viserys was able to see that the prince would come through Rhaenyra. However, he appeared not to understand that he or she would also come through his brother Daemon. Very good point. I don't think he wanted to. He blinded himself, literally. Yeah. It is interesting, Viserys and losing an eye, and then we have Aemond, who also loses an eye. So there's like this parallel between the two of them. It's kind of weird, and I don't know what the overlap is. There's a couple of parallels between Viserys and Aemond, like that, like the eye, also the fact that both of them, their dragons are the oldest and largest dragons, even though Balerion died. Viserys flew him once, and then Balerion died. But he was still the oldest and largest dragon at the time. So it's kind of interesting. And then, Aemond does the same thing. So there are some parallels with them. It might be that he's just, well, I guess I can't say that for the eye, but it might just be he was like trying to impress his dad. I think that both those boys are like, look at me, Dad. And Viserys is like, got his mask on, It's kind of, yeah. Yeah, debt paid, an eye for an eye. Yeah, I was prepaid. So, Luke, you had it coming. No, I'm just kidding. That's terrible. Yes, he is. We'll just keep this comment up here. Aemond is hot. He is. I can't, he's a good looking young man. Can't help myself. And again, after the whole scene with the Madame in Flea Bottom, I think that Aemond became the Cougar fan favorite in that moment. So we know he likes the older women, and he also likes them curvy. So whatever, I'll take it. Yeah. So Cece, she said eggs in Summerhall. Yeah, I did. Okay. I think that we got the setup for that. And I talk about this in my video I just posted yesterday, which if you guys haven't watched it, go watch it, because I'm not getting very good views on it. But yeah, they're at the end of the Dance of the Dragons, they try and collect all the eggs and get them all together. And there are 7 eggs that end up in King's Landing. And I think it's really interesting that they get 7 eggs there. And then later, Summerhall requires 7 eggs for its ritual, which kills everyone anyway. So I'd love to get a scene of that. I would love to see Summerhall. I think that would be absolutely fascinating and heartbreaking. They could have made a show about that. I would take it. I know you would too, Mrs. Duncan the Tall. You want a dunk show. So yes, I agree. Aemond does want respect from his family. And we see that. Like, he wants to be the king. It's he that studies philosophy, and it's he that studies the sword, and does all of these things that are very kingly. And this is a constant issue in the world of George R.R. Martin. He loves to play with this idea of the second son. This is the second son at its core. The second son is always more deserving to be the ruler, or like the bastard son, Jon Snow, or CC Daemon Blackfire, these second sons who are more capable, they're more intelligent, they're stronger, they're better fighters, they are, they study harder, they try harder, because the first son gets it handed to them. And so they're always the prince, they're always the heir, they're always, the realm's delight, right? And so we kind of see this actually with Rhaenyra and Aegon, who is completely unprepared to rule and doesn't even believe it when his family tells him. They're like, you guys are full of crap. Like, I'm not here to rule. Nobody's going to believe this. Rhaenyra's been the heir forever. I don't believe you. It's BS. And so, but Rhaenyra also, she's had everything handed to her. She's the favorite child by Viserys. So it's kind of like another idea. Aegon's sort of like he's a first son with a second son, sort of whatever. He's got poor little rich boy problems. But Aemond, fits the bill better. And he's the third child in the family. So it's kind of interesting. When you look at like Aemond versus Jace, for example, how those two are, how what Jace's personality is like compared to Aemond, where Jace is inherently the heir, and he's sort of got this kind of, Jace would be, let's be real, Jace is perfect. He would be the best heir all around, but it's not going to happen. But yeah, I don't know. I'm all over the place here. The second son, Aemond. He should be king. He's not going to be. But we do run into a situation later. Now, I guess we can talk about this. All right. If you don't want to hear it, we're going to get into spoiler territory. But in the books, Fire and Blood, Aemond and Aegon go and fight Meleys, actually. And Meleys gives them a run for their money. But Vhagar will not be put down easily, because she's just such a hoary old beach. Those are George's words, not mine. But she really puts up a fight, and Aegon and Sunfire get really, really injured and like burnt. His legs are all messed up. His skin gets melted, and he gets really effed up in the fight. And so he is so out of it for a while, because he's on the milk of the poppy, and he's trying to recover, that Aemond steps up and takes that position. And he acts as his heir, as his regent, or what have you. I don't think regents, God bless America. Sorry, I have a fruit fly, and I'm in my plant room, just so you guys know, so you can see all my plants over here. But I have a fruit fly in my face, so sorry. But anyways, so Aemond gets to kind of step into that position and fill the shoes, and he never calls himself king. I don't even think he'll wear the crown. But he does kind of he pulls an Otto, essentially. He's like, I'll act as king while my brother is sick and dying, or sick and, recovering, or just drugged on milk of the poppy, which who knows? Maybe Aemond kind of presses that a little. He's like, give him a little more, maybe it's sort of an Alicent Viserys kind of situation where he starts giving him the stronger drugs so that he can take that position. Kind of interesting. That's kind of dawning on me right now as we're talking. But yeah. So he does deserve more attention and credit, but so do all second sons. So does Daemon. That's the thing. Daemon deserves it too. And how they react when they are not getting that is sort of what makes them so interesting and so, rogue, because they are unpredictable. A king has to be predictable. He has to be reliable. He has to look out for the realm. And we see like Rhaenyra she has those instincts to look out for the realm, to avoid war, to, to put their lineage and the prophecy as the priority. And even if that means she's not queen, she's kind of willing to like take that on the chin if it means preserving their lineage. However, Daemon's not that guy. So yeah. All right. So Be It My Love says, so true. House of the Dragon also shows a great example of how dynasties fall because of right of inheritance. These heirs never lived the life of their generals and leaders and don't know how to truly rule and lead. Exactly. They've grown up as, princes, and they've had things handed to them in life and not had to work very hard. And it's kind of like Joffrey, where it's like he's been told he's going to be the king someday. And then when he becomes the king, he's like, I'm king. And he's like a little brat about it. So those kids are never the ones that are more fit. It's more like Jon Snow, where he doesn't want it, and those are kind of the more fit. Or even, we don't know how Aemond might be as a king. Again, he's studying philosophy, fighting, yada, yada. So it'll be interesting to see how he sort of fits those shoes when the time comes. So hello, Percy. Thank you for being here. All right. So Aemond. And you know what? I did make a video about Aemond and his evil eye. Which like I know kind of sounds a little cheesy, but it's not. There's a lot of like, the evil eye is something that's all over many cultures all over the world, throughout history, throughout religion. It's just the idea of somebody setting their ill intentions on you, and they call it the evil eye. And I'm sure you've seen like the symbols. The Nazar is what it's called, with the blue eye symbol. And so I really feel like Aemond is embodying that idea. Like I feel like George R.R. Martin really created his character kind of around that, his one eye issue. And then like he sets his evil eye on people. And so we see like the situation here where he's got his wine, and he's yeah, Cece mal de ojo, or oja, I think they say, but yeah. Or well, you would know, so don't listen to me. But yeah, he's sitting there at the dinner table. He's watching Jace with his one eye. He's staring him down. And then like, what's interesting is like the way that episode plays out, because Luke and Jace, when they see Aemond and he's fighting in the yard and he's like really kicking ass and he's much different than he was in his childhood, they both are like, Luke, kind of keep back, like stay out of his line of sight kind of thing, because Luke is the one that took his eye 6 years prior when they were kids. And now Aemond's grown up and he's a lot bigger and stronger and he's older and he's very capable as a fighter, which is much different than when they were children. So yeah, it was like, Luke, stay out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And then at dinner, Jace sort of called that attention upon himself by, kind of getting into it with Aegon, and then asking Helaena to dance. And so Aemond had his attention on Jace, but Luke just had to do it. He had to order the pig and have the pig sent over. And so that really, you see the moment where Aemond shifts his attention. He looks right at Luke. And actually, one of the interesting things about the evil eye is that it's believed you are more susceptible to the evil eye while you are eating or drinking, which is why in many ancient cultures, they would put eyes on your dish, like your cups or your plates and that kind of thing. So what's really funny is that Luke's sitting there, he's eating, he's drinking, he's laughing at Aemond, thinking he's so clever, sending that pig over, and then Aemond turns and like looks at him and it's like, oh shit, he just put the evil eye on you, fool. And then what happens later? The magic is fulfilled. So yeah, it's kind of an interesting concept. You know me, I like to get into the weird, like occult mythological explanations of things, but I just thought it was really great that they have him, holding the wine glass here right in that moment where he's like, bye. So anyways, okay, let's go back to Daemon. We're going to talk about my very favorite thing right now. All right, take it or leave it. Daemon has grayscale, okay? And we're going to talk about it right now. First of all, look at the picture. Do you remember a man named Jorah Mormont who went to the Citadel with grayscale all over his chest and had it, curetaged away? His scarring looks awfully like similar to that exact same thing. And I don't know, I mean, I got this picture off Twitter, but this was in the scene with Rhaenyra and Daemon when they're in the Driftwood Castle, as I like to call it, because Daemon is he's the king of the Stepstones, his Driftwood throne. He was in a Driftwood castle when he and Rhaenyra, it's like the ruins of an old ship, and they made love there for the first time. And you can see in that scene, he's got scars all over his body. And it's like, where would those scars have come from? Because he had grayscale. In my opinion, guys, he got grayscale when he was in the Stepstones, when he fought the crab feeder, and he got covered in his freaking blood all over. And then we just moved on like that wasn't a thing. So I think that Cece is like, oh God. Yeah, because this is something I talk about all the time. I firmly believe that Daemon has grayscale. I firmly believe that he has scourged it away with dragon fire. I believe that they showed us this when he was flying with Lena in Pentos, and Vhagar blasted a gout of fire, and Daemon flew right through the fire like nobody's business. He's got no fear of the fire. Now, I mean, I think, we've all learned enough over the last couple of years with masks and gloves and, quarantine and all of this, where if you're getting covered in infected blood, then you are going to get infected, and we already know from Game of Thrones that grayscale is such an infectious disease. People are terrified of it. Shireen, they wouldn't go near Shireen. They treated her like she was, a freak kind of. And so there is a lot of evidence. It's just like, why would they include that? Why? Another thing is that in the books, the crab feeder does not have grayscale. That's something they included in the show. So why? Like, what's the point? Because Daemon got infected with it. And I think that what they were trying to create the question of is, oh, well, Daemon has a dragon versus Viserys, who has leprosy, and Viserys doesn't have a dragon. Okay, so we kind of think of grayscale as like a far more severe, terrifying illness. And because Daemon has a dragon, he has a stronger immune system. He's not, susceptible to these diseases. And we've learned that, many times, like with Daenerys, that was something she's not susceptible to the diseases of common men. Yeah, exactly. And so, but Viserys, who does not have a dragon, is very susceptible to a disease of the common men, like leprosy. And so, it just ravages him. So then we see Daemon, who, in contrast with his dragon, I think they were like, oh, let's play with this idea. But I think on a deeper layer, Daemon was infected. But he's found a way. He went to Pentos. He read all those books. In the books, he went to Pentos. He went to Volantis. He went all over Essos, him and Lena. They traveled all over the place. But we do see the shot of him reading and studying all of those books. And I believe that in Pentos and all over in Essos, they're going to have a lot more of those details, the ancient Valyrian magic and whatever, all of that, all of the information, their history, their lore, their gods and goddesses, their their religion, their all of it, like their blood magic rituals and things of that nature, or songs like we see Daemon singing to Vermithor later. I think he found a lot of that information while he was in Pentos and studied a lot of it, because Lena even like gets on his case. She's like, you're just obsessed with all these old dragon riders and you say they don't have a hold on you, but all you do is sit here and read and read and read, because he's finding all this like old information that's really super valuable that is just collecting dust on shelves. And people in Westeros are like under the impression that all of this stuff has been destroyed. No, in Essos, it's the 9 free cities of Valyria. They're the Valyria's daughters. So all of those places are conquest, cities of conquest or whatever. They are full, like they're of Valyria, so they're practicing Valyrian customs. It's kind of like if you look at Rome, like Valyria is like the Roman Empire, in their different outposts and their different like cities and that kind of thing are all very Romanized. And even in places in countries where they were taking over, they would implement their Roman ways so hard they would meld their gods together and create, like a melded deity in order to implement themselves even harder into these places. So you can see the same kind of thing would have happened throughout Essos with, Valyria's daughters and that kind of thing. So of course they're going to have really valuable information that they're not going to have in Westeros, because the maesters are not going to want that in Westeros. All the best maesters go to Essos to learn. They go there and they study, and then they come back and they write books, and they're like, I read this, that, and this over in Essos, according to this, guy in Essos. And so it's kind of an interesting. Anyways, I could go on, but but at the end of the day, I really think that Daemon has grayscale. I think that he figured out a way to kind of like cure himself of it. But I also think that we have to take that into consideration when thinking about his children that come out malformed and scaled. And while, yes, I think there is something to Targaryens having monstrous births and that kind of thing. I don't have the picture on here, but the picture that they released of Rhaenyra's baby Visenya, if you look at the scales, yes, it's a scaled child, and yes, it has kind of like interesting bone formation and that kind of thing, but the scales don't necessarily look like dragon scales as much as they look exactly like the scaling that was on Shireen's face in Game of Thrones. So is there something to that? Both of the, Daemon's third child is the one that dies, so it's like things like the 3 heads of the dragon kind of thing. So it's kind of like a curse, and trust me, I can get way deeper into this, but I won't put you guys through that today. So anyways, tra-la-la, Daemon has grayscale. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Do you guys Cece knows because I torture her with this stuff. Yes. So, yes. Okay. The dragon song. Yeah. So, do we think he may have warged? I think he is definitely. Let me find the picture. Hold on. Now I've got some pictures. I'll take you guys on a visual journey through my pictures I have for you. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know if he's warging with them or if he is simply trying to claim. Personally, I think he's trying to claim and fly 3 dragons. I think that's his goal. And He has flown 2 dragons before, and this is canon. It's in both the Rogue Prince, and it's in Fire and Blood. Okay, Daemon flew Vhagar and Caraxes across the Narrow Sea. Laena and her daughters were in a ship. Daemon flew ahead. Both dragons ahead. Okay, not with the ship, not with the ship. He flew ahead with both dragons. He flew them both. Okay, those are he's very familiar with Vhagar. This was his wife's dragon for 10, they were married for 10 years. If you can imagine, if you're married to someone for 10 years and they had a dog, that dog's going to know you. That's your dad, or that's their dad kind of thing. So it'll be really interesting to see how things are going to go with Vhagar, Caraxes, Daemon in the future, and how he's going to be able to control her. I think that the dragon song is a way to, I think it's like a spell. It's like a Valyrian spell. He's casting a spell on Vermithor to try and claim him, or at least prime him for the battles to come. But personally, I think he wants to fly him. I think he wants to fly him and Silverwing. And I think if he can convince Vermithor, then, Silverwing is down because that's his lady dragon. So yeah, that's my opinion on it. But warging with the dragon, I think, is a really interesting idea because I don't think I do not discount that idea. And I think that Helaena does that later with Dreamfire when she dies. So yeah. So all right. So yeah, that scene was incredible. And I know there's like a lot of different opinions on the what Daemon's song is or what he was doing, what the 3 heads of the dragon are, what it represents. I know that there's a couple people that are, they interpret it as it's the rider, the dragon, and the sacrificed being, the soul of the sacrificed being that, because in order to I don't know. And in order to bind their bloodline with the dragons, obviously there was blood sacrifice involved. That's no secret, that the Valyrians were practicing blood sacrifice. And then we see with Daemon's song, he says the price has been paid. And I think we can all equate that to the death of Visenya. But I also think there might be something more to it because, Luke also dies right after that. So I don't know if it's it requires more than one life, or maybe Visenya's life didn't count because she was an unborn child. I don't know. There's I'm kind of finding some different because if you look at Daenerys, when she hatched her dragon eggs, she had her baby Rhaego, which she interpreted as a sacrifice. Khal Drogo's death. So he's a king. And then she also bound Mirri Maz Duur to the funeral pyre. So she actually had 3 deaths involved in hers. And then she also walked into the fire. And is that one death per dragon egg, maybe? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But it's, the idea is what could this possibly be? I saw another gal that she believed that the 3 heads of the dragon could be, the song could be part of it. The song is so important. I can't remember, but her video was great. I actually really liked it. It was the song, the rider and the dragon are the 3 heads of the dragon or something like that. So I don't know. It's kind of beautiful. But hey guys, thanks for coming over. Oh yeah, from David Lightbringer. Yes, he is a great friend to the channel, and he did an awesome stream. I was watching it right up until I went live. I was like, okay, I gotta go. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. So yeah, we're just talking about the rogue princes. So thank you all for being over here. Carl Karsnark, Silver Scale, Apollo Reborn, love the name. Koi Pond, Yeah, thank you guys all for being here. That's awesome. So yeah, we're just kind of talking about different interpretations of the three heads of the dragon. I know there's like, I think it's David has been talking about it being the soul of the sacrificed person, the rider and the dragon, I believe is his interpretation. I think that it could be like I think it's a matter of recreating the three heads of the dragon like in Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys version, like the visual interpretation. So yeah. Anyways, Secret Targaryen, Persephone. Thank you for being here, Persephone. I appreciate it. Tell your husband Hades I said hello. I keep an altar to him right here next to my live streaming station. So yeah, we honor Hades in this house. So yeah, feel free to drop your questions. We're talking about the rogues, Aemond and Daemon, and just kind of like what they are up to. You guys just missed my grayscale spiel. So that's really unfortunate for all of you because that's the most interesting thing I love to talk about. I strongly believe Daemon has grayscale. So let's just get this, elephant out of the room. And that he's been treating it with by scourging it with dragon fire. And I think that we were shown that when he and Lena were flying together, Vhagar blasted a gout of flame and Daemon flew right through it. We also have like some pictures of him being all scarred up, when he's with Rhaenyra. So I think there's definitely something to that. So yeah, and that's kind of what we've covered so far, that and Aemond and his evil eye. So yeah, definitely drop any questions you have in the chat about these two. The rogues are just my favorite because they're just so fun. They're unpredictable. They're just wild, and they both have the second son thing going on. They're both really strongly affected by Viserys and what, he kind of did to them. So it's an interesting thing to look at these two a little deeper. Show Dany has good emotional intelligence and a strategic mind. I don't think a woman can be like that. They're too emotional. This is male genocide. Oh, well, Maelor Baelor. All right. Well, I'll take your $5 though. No, I'm just kidding. But I think Dany does. I think Rhaenyra does too. I think Rhaenyra has shown restraint. And I think that Rhaenys, points that out. She's the only one that's keeping them from going to war, where Daemon's like, no, screw all this. I'm about to just take Craxes into town and go, take care of it. I think Rhaenyra has good restraint. And I think that we're going to see a shift in that because her children are being killed. And personally, I would probably have done a lot worse than Rhaenyra if my children were killed. If I had like 4 children that were killed, in this war, I'd probably just hop on Syrax and just go and go Daenerys, go bells on King's Landing. Like the fact that Rhaenyra doesn't do that is very telling of like her abilities as queen. She does have a decent-ish head on her shoulders. I think, but that's another thing, like her husband Daemon, our rogue king, our rogue prince, he can get her into a little bit of hot water because he has a temper and he's down to fight. And that's what's interesting about him, because like I think that he has the right, he's in the right, like for wanting to just go and blast these people. Like this is his family, this is his, his brother was the king, and now that his brother is dead, which he knew the High Towers were poisoning him, we see that scene of him sniffing in the cup. He knows something's going on, and then his brother just dies. I'm surprised that he doesn't have a harsher reaction. I don't know what I would do, but having a dragon and the ability to just kind of go into King's Landing to take care of it might, I don't know. Anyways, yes, I agree with this statement. Persephone. I was very underwhelmed with his casting at first. I was like, oh, I wanted Daemon to. My bar for Daemon was set at Henry Cavill as The Witcher. I was like, it's got to be better than that. So, yeah, I was a little underwhelmed, but honestly, he's doing a really great job. I think he's really embodying sort of the intensity of Daemon and the silent intensity of Daemon, because that is another part of him that makes him so rogue, because you don't know what he's going to do because he's silent. It's like, is he going to go and just torch everyone? Or is he going to like let this roll off his back? Or is he going to laugh in the middle of a funeral? You know, like he is just a wild card. You never know what you're going to get with him. And he's doing a great job. So I love it. He's not, he doesn't, you know, even in those moments where he needs attention, like when he steals the dragon egg and he's trying to get attention, he's still not like throwing a fit. He's not like over the top. He's like the silent sort of, you know, trying to get attention in silence. It's an interesting way he plays the role. So I love it. Okay, let me see. Let's just look around in the chat for a few. Yes, I agree with that, Darklyn. Rhys Ifans does look like a Targaryen in the Harry Potter series. Yeah, it's funny. All right. So yeah, for restraint, but if I had a nuke when I was 14, I absolutely would have used it, and at the worst time ever. Agree. You know, that's the thing. She is showing restraint. And so I think, you know, some of those talks she had with Viserys, like down when they were near Valyrian's skull, and he's like, you know, the dragons were a power that men shouldn't have trifled with. And you know, what do you see when you know, look at them, kind of thing. I think that is I think it was impactful for her. You know, we don't see a lot of the proper training to be a queen between Viserys and Rhaenyra, but some of these conversations were very impactful on her. So they share their bond in like that sort of like dreamer state, I guess you might say. Okay. If I'm missing any questions, I apologize, guys. Maylor Baylor, this is a little bit intense, okay? So you don't gotta be going there. All right, so okay. Let's move on to our next thing. So I guess we can elaborate on this a little bit more. We talked about it before, but the texts and things that Daemon was studying while he was in Pentos, you know, I think in that he found the information about like the song, the power behind the song. He may not have learned about Aegon's prophecy. I don't think that's going to be in those pages, but I think he learned a lot of magic and ancient Valyrian knowledge. I think that there is a lot of that information in Essos, in the, you know, Valeria's daughters in the 9 free cities, which were Valyrian outposts. So they're going to have such strong Valyrian culture like infused into those cities. And it's only been, you know, at this point, like 100 years or so since the doom, or like, you know, maybe 200 years since the doom happened. So they're still going to have a lot of that information around. It's just collecting dust. It's just going to be who's interested in reading it. I think Daemon's interested. I think in the future, Illyrio Mopatis is interested. They're both in Pentos, but we don't have to get into that right now, or we can. Yeah. So that I found to be really interesting, but I think that he learned, you know, with the song that he sings to Vermithor, I think he picked up some of that information while in Pentos. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting caught up here, guys, since my new folks came in. Yeah, I don't know about this whole, I think it's kind of a, don't get me wrong, I love Henry Cavill, and I'm very surprised to hear the whole thing about The Witcher. I don't think he's gonna come on House of the Dragon. I just don't see it happening. He's just too like he'll just steal the show. It's kind of the thing. And so I don't know if it's I just don't see it happening. Although I would like it. I think somebody said I think it was actually Minty said on David's stream earlier that he could play Maegor if they did like a Maegor flashback. Yes, I would be down for that. I would accept that. I love Maegor. Okay, I'm a Maegor apologist over here, so judge me if you want, but I am. So okay, after all the free cities, let's see what we got here. Apollo. After all the free cities didn't have a book burning moment at the time, they probably have 10 times more knowledge. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. They have all, they're Valyrian outposts, so they're, if we look at like the Roman Empire as an example, when they are infusing themselves into these conquered lands, they would try so hard to infuse themselves that they'd even meld their gods in with the local gods. So, if they're going to leave a lot of information behind for to make that, more fluid, right? And so it's really interesting to consider. It's also kind of like ties into like a Maester conspiracy, because obviously in Essos, they're going to have a lot of information about Valyria, and that kind of stuff is sort of suppressed in Westeros. And also we know that like the smartest Maesters go to Essos to study, or they go to Ashai, or they go to Yt, they travel, but they don't stay in Westeros. Westeros is kind of like young, and it doesn't have all of that old knowledge. People came to Westeros from Essos, so it's kind of a that's where all the older knowledge is going to be. Like it's like being in America. You're going to find a lot more information in Europe than you're going to find around here. So but yes, I love the idea of like what he could have read over there. I'm sure, he found, Lena gets on his case. She's like, you're obsessed with these old dragon lords and you say they don't have any hold over you, but obviously they do, because you spend all your time studying and reading books and being lost in the books rather than like living up to your potential, which honestly I think is wrong. I honestly think Daemon and Lena could have had a better life in Essos than in Westeros. And in the books, Lena gives birth to their third child in Westeros. And so part of me wonders if that's not, it's kind of like with Daenerys in Game of Thrones, where you almost wonder if life would have been better if she would have just stayed in Meereen. She was already the queen there. She was already, working on being accepted by the people. They were already familiar with her and her dragons. Why did she feel the need to leave and go conquer a whole new land that wasn't necessary? She was doing okay. And then when she gets to Westeros, everything goes to crap. Nobody respects her. Nobody wants her there. They don't want her or her dragons. They treat her like garbage. And you have to wonder, would life have been better if she would have stayed in Essos, and not bother, sure, there's the long night coming, but you know what? That sounds like your problem, not mine. Which, this is why I'm not a queen. I'm Maegor's daughter. But yeah. But so you kind of wonder if like Lena and Daemon could have had a better life if they would have just stayed in Essos, where in Pentos, they were already offered to stay and live a lavish lifestyle and be treated like a king and a queen there. And, it is closer. Like Daemon even says, Valeria's gone. I don't have a home. And Westeros is not exactly his home. It hasn't treated him very well. So, it's something to ponder over if their life could have been better if they would have stayed in Essos. Yeah, Koi Pond. Essos just seems like a better place. Yeah, there's more culture, especially if you're if you have Valyrian blood. Aemond, I mean not Aemond, but what am I even saying? Volantis. In Volantis, behind the black walls, the old blood, the old Valyrians, the people that are left behind, not dragon riders, because the Targaryens are the last dragon riders. However, they're not the last Valyrians. There's tons of Valyrians all over in Essos. And yeah, behind the black walls of Volantis, the old blood of Valyria lives, and they don't even have to leave the black walls. They are treated like kings and queens there. They have slaves that do everything for them. They, are completely taken care of and live as royalty. So one has to wonder, like, why did they leave? you know? So yeah, I would love to see more of old Valyria. I'd love if they'd give us like a flashback of it. That would be really cool. Or yeah, just anything, any visual of it would be really fun. I mean, we got that kind of quick, with Jorah and Tyrion in Game of Thrones. They, I think, sail through part of it or sort of incorporated into it. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, what was he reading? I would love to know. I really would love to know, Persephone. But yeah. And yes, Shalom, I do post these streams. I should be, yeah, I don't stream that often. I just do it every now and again. But my husband's out of town. So I was like, I'm doing a live stream. I'm undisturbed today. So, all right. Well, let's move on and talk about, I don't know, we're just going to click a picture and see what we get. And then we'll talk about it. Well, we just talked about that. So we're not doing that one. All right. So, rogue moment. Rogue moment of episode. Actually, this is like the biggest rogue moment of season 1. Let's be honest. So Luke is killed. And we talked about this a little bit earlier with like Aemond's evil eye, because I think that, and I'll just repeat this for people that weren't here earlier. The evil eye is, something that's in many cultures, many religions around the world. And it's just the idea of like, you can inflict malicious energy onto a person by simply like, setting your eye on them. And it's you can manifest like negativity for them. And some believe that you are more susceptible to this when you're eating or drinking. And so if we can look back at that scene with back in episode 8 with Luke and Aemond and the roast pig and all of that, they're like sitting at the table, Luke's eating, he's kind of chuckling at himself thinking he's so funny and clever, and then Aemond sees the roast pig and he just bam. Like up until that point, Aemond's attention was on Jace because Jace was dancing with Helaena. Jace was, arguing with Aegon, having issues with him. And Jace is obviously just like, the better example out of everyone. He's obviously just a really good prince, while these other kids are kind of like little assholes. So, so Aemon's attention was fully on, his evil eye was on Jace until Luke had to go poke in the bear. And that's the thing. It's like Luke should have laid low because he's the one that took Aemon's eye all those years before. He should have just kind of minded his own business. And Aemond probably wouldn't have even, he probably would have just kind of let it go. But he had to send that roast pig over and therefore draw Aemon's attention onto him. And that was it. Aemond snapped. And so I think he inflicted the evil eye on him. And whether or not his intentions were to go all the way, when the battle happens at Storm's End, I honestly think he was just trying to, mess with him, with Luke, and just kind of screw around. He had no intention of, we saw he lost control of Vhagar. So, I mean, he had no intention of following through and actually hurting. He might have tried to take his eye if he got him. Maybe he cornered Luke. Maybe he got him off his dragon. Maybe they're fighting. He might have taken his eye, but I honestly don't think he would have. I don't think he would have. I think Aemond has enough decency inside of him that he wouldn't have. He probably would have just fucked with him, he probably would have held him down and been like, screw you kind of thing. And then just whatever, sent him off. But I really, we'll never know. We will never know because the magic of the evil eye worked. when Vhagar saw it through. And that's the thing. It's like, what sort of connection do these people have with their dragons, and what sort of intention can the dragon, derive from that? Because if there is sort of like this magical element to the evil eye, and Aemond's, energy, was Vhagar like receptive of that? And whether or not Aemond, intended to follow through with Luke, Vhagar did, because she sensed that intention. She sensed the magic within him. That's their connection with each other. Or maybe Vhagar just was like, oh, whatever, and just having a little fun, but I don't know. It's difficult to say. But now we're in this moment of, oh crap, what is Aemond gonna do? Can you imagine the conversation he's going to have with his mother and grandfather? When he has to go back and explain what happened, they are not going to be happy. I think there's a line in the book that said, you still have one eye, but how could you be so blind, or something like that. So yeah, it's not good. This is a not good rogue situation. And we have to kind of like wonder, like, what can we expect? What do you think Aemond's going to do? How do you think Aemond truly feels? And do you think that Vhagar feels the same way? Like, if, okay, let's say Aemond had this anger, this intention he was carrying for all these years, and then Vhagar sees it through. Well, now he feels remorse, he feels guilt, he feels sad, he feels like scared, probably, like, oh crap, what did I just do? What did I just kick off? Does Vhagar feel that? Does she feel remorse? Does she feel like, oh, whoops, my bad? Does she feel any of those things? Or is she just a dragon and she's just doing her thing? It's very, it's a mystery. But I think there's something to the fact that Aemond lost control of Vhagar. And as we talked about earlier, Daemon has had control over Vhagar because he has flown both dragons. And if you guys missed that, there are two quotes, one in the Rogue Prince, one in Fire and Blood, that says, when Laena and the girls were a little bit older, so this is after the twins were born, they sailed back home to Driftmark, whilst Daemon flew ahead with Caraxes and Vhagar. So how I interpret that, written in two different sources, is Daemon has flown two dragons. And one of those dragons is Vhagar. And Aemond doesn't always have control over Vhagar, but Daemon has had control over Vhagar. So do you see where I'm going with this? I think that, there's the potential that Daemon can use that influence in the future when these two encounter each other. This is his wife's dog. The wife's dog remembers dad. So yeah, it's interesting. So, well, let me see if you guys have dropped any good questions. Let's see. Yeah, for real. I like that, Persephone. Religious in the streets and evil in the sheets, for real. Definitely evil in the sheets. Mom, don't be mad, but I have to confess something. Yeah, go to the mother for confession, right? Alicent and the mother. I have some thoughts about that too. I'm thinking about making a video. Tell me what you guys, how you would, if you'd be interested in watching a video about Alicent and Kristen Cole and their like weird dynamic that they have going on, and their weird like whatever exploitation. I think it's very like Guinevere and Lancelot going on. So if you guys are interested in that, that's like one I've been really mulling over in my mind. So if you want me to make a video about that, let me know. Yeah, exactly. Dark tapestries, exactly. Do you want to see the tapestries from Cohor and Norbos? No, he doesn't want to see the tapestries. Yeah, wife's dog remembers dad. That's what I'm saying. Laena and Daemon were married for 10 years. So it's like, even though Laena died Like Vhagar was her dragon that whole time. So, obviously, and again, they were researching all this ancient knowledge and texts and resources and stuff. So it's like they had these two dragons to work with and try these things out. And I think that we saw really clearly in those scenes in Pentos that they have a thing worked out. They've learned a lot, and those two, they are sailing through the skies together, and they're dancing as dragons, and they're flying through each other's fire, and they have kind of their tricks worked out, and it's like so beautiful. So I really think that yeah, it's like they went to dog training together. Daemon, he excelled with both dogs. So yeah. Yes. Okay. So dragons make their riders think they're in control of them. Yeah, that's a good one. But dragons are, and that kind of goes back to what Viserys said, that they're a power that shouldn't have been trifled with, that men shouldn't have messed with. So it's interesting to consider, like, especially because here's another thing. Okay, actually, that kind of goes in with that. Alicent's children, none of them got dragon eggs. They all bonded to older dragons. Even Sunfire was an older dragon who has not had another rider, but when Aegon claimed him, I think, is Sunfire a him? I'm not sure. But anyways, when he claimed Sunfire, he was a little bit older. And obviously Aemond's with Vhagar, Helena's with Dreamfire. Dreamfire was written by Rhaena Targaryen, which is Jaehaerys's older sister. And so none of them had eggs. And even Rhaenyra offered to Alicent to give Aemond an egg, actually, when Syrax laid her next clutch. And this was before Aemond had claimed a dragon. But she offered an egg to him, and Alicent declined it. She was like, oh, well, think about it. But remember, Viserys was like, oh, that's a mighty gift. And so it's interesting. None of them had dragon eggs, but all of Rhaenyra's children had dragon eggs, and they were all laid by Syrax. So it's kind of interesting. I wonder if there's something to that. If you're claiming an older dragon who's had another rider, maybe they're not, maybe you're not exactly in control of them. Maybe they're forever bonded to their original rider. It's an idea to toy with. I don't know. Because there are some, that only have one rider in their life. I don't know. That's an idea. I'm going to mull that over a little further, actually. So, yeah, dragons are they, them, until they lay eggs or not. Or maybe they can, doesn't Septim Barth say they can change? They can be this or that. So who knows? They are they, them. Yeah. So no eggs hatched for Alicent's kids. Yeah. I don't know if they even, and then later after the dance, Aegon tries to get more eggs. He has 7 eggs sent to him from the Dragonmont. So let's talk about this a little bit. So after the dance, he wants a new dragon because he's trying to like establish that he's king still. And so there's a new maester sent to Dragonstone because Aegon had Maester Gerardus killed. And so they send a new maester over, and Aegon goes back to King's Landing, and then he says, okay, send me some eggs. Send me new dragon eggs. Well, the maester chooses 7 eggs for the gods, the 7 gods, meaning the faith. So chooses 7 eggs that seemed the most promising and sent them to Aegon, and he kept them in his own chambers, and he even slept with them, but none of them ever hatched. What I think is like so interesting about that whole statement is the maester, the new maester on Dragonstone, who honors the faith of the 7, you know, like, do you think that the dragon tamers that are currently on Dragonstone and working for the Targaryens, they do not seem like they honor the gods of the Seven. They seem like they're straight from Essos, and they name dragons after gods of old Valyria. So I'm I that maester is fully conspiring. He's fully in the maester conspiracy, the new maester on Dragonstone. I don't know who he is. They didn't say his name, but screw him. So yeah, it's interesting. So let's see. Let's check the chat here. Let's see. So, like, ex riders who hatch with dragons in their cradle are more likely to have dragons who have the ability to lay eggs. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. So, and I will tell you this just because I just made a video about this. So I'm really freshly studied on this topic. But there have only been 3 dragons during the Targaryen reign who are reported to have laid eggs. Syrax, Dreamfire, and the last dragon, which is that small little dragon that it's in the Dunk and Egg series. They reference the last dragon, and I guess she laid a clutch of 5 eggs, but none of the eggs hatched. Okay, but this dragon was really small and sickly. She was only the size of a dog. And when they show in Game of Thrones, they have the meeting at the dragon pit, in like season 7 or something like that. And Daenerys is holding that little jawbone of a tiny dragon. I think that's the last dragon's jawbone. But anyways, those 3 are the only that have laid dragons in the during the Targaryen reign. So it's actually not a very common thing for dragons to lay eggs. But Syrax is very fertile, and that is kind of a direct reflection of Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra was Syrax's only rider, and she was also very fertile. And one thing that should be said is when Lena and Daemon moved back from Essos and they were living on Driftmark, Rhaenyra was living on Dragonstone with Laenor, and they would all fly their dragons, but especially Daemon, Rhaenyra, and Lena would fly together as those 3. So it's kind of like a representation of the 3 heads of the dragon because it's like Daemon and his 2 wives, right? And they flew around, and during that time Syrax was super fertile. She laid a bunch of eggs. And so when Daemon says in episode 10 that he's got 12 eggs incubating on the Dragonmont, I believe that all 12 of those eggs were laid by Syrax, because Dreamfire is not reported to have laid any eggs after 54 AC, because that was when Alyssa Farman stole the eggs, the 3 eggs from Dragonstone. Whoops. Those were Dreamfire's eggs. And after that, she's not reported to have laid any more eggs. So I think any eggs after that are from Syrax. That's my educated guess. So, yeah, knowing more about the last dragons. So, and then after the dance, only 4 dragons survive. And one of those is Rhaena Targaryen. Her dragon egg finally hatches. And so she has one of the dragons that survives the dance. The rest pretty much just go wild. They go rogue. They get away from everyone. They hide. So, yes, this. Yes, ma'am. I think there's definitely something to this. I think that, and this is kind of tied to the mythological idea of divine feminine wisdom and like serpentine, like the divine feminine and serpent consort imagery, and mythology. That's all, like, I think that's the source for this idea, where like you look at Illyrio Mopatis and how he gives those eggs to Daenerys, but he's also been like raising and working with Aegon for like his, Aegon like essentially grew up with Illyrio. It's perhaps even his father. But he doesn't give the eggs to Aegon. He gives them to Daenerys. He doesn't give them to Viserys. He gives them to Daenerys because he knows it's the female. And so it's like commentary on divine feminine, which I love, but YouTube really doesn't like me talking about. So, Rogue Dragon, yeah. AK, are you here? There you are. Hi, AK. How you doing? Good to see you, my friend. I saw on your Instagram you're in New York. I don't know why I said it like that. But I hope you're having fun. Send some of that energy around. I need some of it. Okay. So, this is a good question. Tyler Fairgrieve. Do we think the showrunners in Georgia are just going to change the story completely because everything I've seen shows they aren't going to do that in any significant way? Here's what I think is that Fire and Blood is just written from a maester's perspective. And so we have to take it all with a grain of salt. And I think I've heard them say that like House of the Dragon is the most true telling of what actually happened. And so I'm kind of fine with the changes that have been made because you can really see in Fire and Blood how they write it to vilify Rhaenyra or even the Targaryens in general, which is really interesting because the book is written for the Targaryens, but again, it's still kind of manipulated to put them in sort of a questionable light because they have this dragon power. And that's, again, part of the Maester conspiracy. So I think it's actually kind of fun to see the differences in the show versus the book. Like Melee's, for example. Completely different than how it goes in the book, where Sunfire flies through and flies through the dragon pit and is not like, violent or anything like that. But they change it. And then so you have to wonder, why didn't the Maesters write about that? Well, because it kind of casts the whole coronation in a negative light. It makes it look questionable. It's like, why would Rhaenys choose to do that with her dragon and burst through the floorboards? And, what was she like fighting against or saying, was wrong here? So it's kind of fun to like explore those ideas of like where the Maesters change the story and obviously are doing it in favor of the Hightowers because they're in bed with the Hightowers. It's like old town conspiracy BS. So yeah, I'm enjoying it, but I know, like, I don't know. It's fun because it's also filling in a lot of the gaps from A Song of Ice and Fire and from Game of Thrones that were left behind. So it really is actually making it much more rich and more like enjoyable, especially like if you're someone like me who I was not planning on covering this show. And AK and other people who've known me for a long time, I used to be in the Thrones fandom a long time ago, but I just, after season 8, it was just a little too much drama, and so I dipped out and started working on other stuff and kind of changed it up. And so I was not planning on coming back to House of Dragons, but actually it's just so good. The way that it's filling in the gaps for Game of Thrones and the things that were missed or left out or, kind of ruined essentially by D&D. Now that we have George back working on House of the Dragon, it's like, oh, thank God, we're really getting a more rich story that's like filling in these gaps. So I love it personally. So yeah, exactly. History is written by the victors. And so yeah, the Maesters, it's just fun to like find the holes, and then it gives us kind of more proof of like the Maester conspiracy, so it's interesting. Yeah, we're all traumatized after season 8. Exactly. It was just a lot of, I don't know what it was. It was chaos is what it was. It was just a lot of like, a lot of energy going into it, so, but I'm glad that we're all kind of coming back around and, reigniting the fandom and, just in a different way now, which is fun. I like it. So, yeah, exactly. House of the Dragon was too good to stay away from. I know. I was looking on my Instagram. I posted a video after episode 1 and I had watched like the first 5 minutes and I was just crying. And I went on Instagram. I'm like, I'm just crying. I can't believe this is so good. So it's like, I'm an idiot. So, yeah. Yeah, like and subscribe. Thank you, Carl Karsnark. Yeah, and definitely go check out some of my videos I've made. I put a video out yesterday. And just, yeah, I've put out a lot of videos actually after House of the Dragon started. Again, I wasn't planning on it, but it just started coming out and there's still so much to talk about. So I'm hoping that, you guys will enjoy my stuff during the off season. So, yeah. When people talk about Dan and Dave. Exactly. Yeah. What did they do to you? How are you traumatized by these guys? We all have our own individual traumas. That's what House of the Dragon is we're just in a support group from Game of Thrones, right? So, all right. Well, let's see. So, what have I missed? Hold on. Let me check my little list here. I made a list of things and we've definitely gone through it. Oh, okay. So we'll talk about this. Let me find a picture of Daemon. And I don't have a picture of this exact thing that I want to talk about, but we'll just leave it here. Okay. I did want to talk about Daemon having a comparison to Achilles. And I don't know if you guys caught that, but there were several examples of it. Like there were 3 distinct examples of them focusing on his ankle or his foot, which I found to be like really fascinating as to why they're sort of creating this Achilles comparison. I haven't quite wrapped my mind around it, but it is something like to watch for. But they show his foot in episode 3 when he's with the crab feeder and he's fighting him, and he like basically does that suicide run. Like he like runs across and they're all shooting arrows at him. And this is before Corlys's army has come out, and he kind of pauses for a moment and they show this quick shot of his foot, and then like an arrow comes like right as he moves his foot. I mean, it's just so quick. But I just thought that was like really fascinating, like why they included that. But then they do it again. So they do it when he's searching for the dragon eggs and he's like spelunking in the cave. And he drops down and they show his foot. And then they do it again when he's singing to Vermithor. When he's walking into that cavern, they focus on his feet. And so it's kind of interesting if we're like considering, this idea of like the Achilles heel, like what's his, your weakness. Achilles heel is like your weakness or your susceptibility. And so in those scenes when they're showing his Achilles heel, we have to kind of wonder like what is his Achilles heel? It's like the dragon or the female dragon is kind of what I'm like drawn to, especially with the last 2, when he's searching for the dragon eggs. And then like sort of the feminine dragon is his Achilles heel. I don't know. That was kind of, but again, it ties into like divine feminine, and YouTube doesn't like me to talk about that. So, but I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about that or any other like comparisons of him to Achilles. I also think that there's something kind of interesting to the idea. There is a plague in the Iliad in the beginning. I'm trying to remember like all the details of it, but it's like Apollo sends a plague on the Trojan, no, on the Spartans, because Agamemnon had taken the daughter of a priest. Sorry, I'm like trying to remember all this. Takes the daughter of a priest as like his lover. He basically like kidnaps the daughter of a priest. And so like he offends the gods. And that priest like prays to Apollo to like, avenge his daughter kind of thing. And so he sends a plague down on the city. He like rains a plague down with his arrows. And then Achilles, I think, arrives maybe right after that or something, and he's like, "What's going on here?" He realizes what's going on, and he convinces Agamemnon to return the girl to the priest, I believe, and that's the only way that the plague is lifted. I don't know if I'm telling the story correctly or incorrectly. If anyone in the chat, yes, it does exactly. Koi Pond, it all comes back to grayscale. Exactly. Daemon has grayscale. Okay, guys, like I'm gonna keep saying this until you all believe me. Daemon has grayscale. So so I think it's another connection, like Achilles and the plague, and yeah, it's all like, yep, it all comes back to grayscale. So yeah, it's just kind of an observation. His Achilles heel and all of that. I just really liked it. I think it's an interesting thing for them to include. Let's see. Was not expecting my love of House of Dragon and my love of the Iliad to connect here, but I love it. Yeah, there are a lot actually. Helaena also really fits into Cassandra. Like she fits that Cassandra role. Yeah, there's a lot. I want to try and like, actually I was thinking about trying to make a video of that too, all the kind of Greek mythology, because really like this whole story is such like a Greek tragedy. Like it's just that vibe of the whole family being killed and this war that's happening and nobody wins in the end, and then there's old gods involved, and I think that we really see a lot of those overtones with the dragons sort of representing the old gods in this war. And it's sort of a turning of the tides, and we see this on so many levels throughout this story. It's a turning of the tides in the sense of like a turning of religion and that kind of thing too. So we see like the old gods of Valyria being as the dragons, the death of the dragons, and then we have the uprising of the faith. And that's represented by Alicent being the mother and all of that. So yeah, they do it on a lot of levels. They do it on a mythological level, I've noticed, like with the scene with Kristen Cole and Joffrey of Monmouth. That is indicative of that is Arthurian. That is straight up 100,000,000%. That is a Arthurian reference right there. Joffrey of Monmouth and Joffrey of Monmouth. Joffrey of Monmouth wrote The History of the High Kings of Britain, which is the first text about King Arthur, one of the first texts about King Arthur. And so he represents sort of this Welsh. Joffrey of Monmouth is like the Welsh mythology, the old gods, the old world. And then Christian Cole, or Kristen Lancelot, coming in with the romantic literature and the French aspect of Arthurian literature, overtaking the Welsh origins because people love romance and all of that. So that we see that through that whole scene when Christian Cole kills Joffrey of Monmouth, it's the Christianized, romanticized, Vulgate cycle overtaking the Welsh origins of King Arthur. So wow, that's me going deep nerd. So yeah, there's a lot. I mean, I love the mythology in this story because you can really find a lot of threads to pull, going back to like episode 3 with Rhaenyra and the boar and the stag, and her being like the like the stag and the princess. Chef's kiss. I made a video about that. You guys can definitely go watch it. It's really good. I mean, not my video is really good, but the reference, the mythology of it is like so good. It's so rich, and I just love it so much. I'm like Daemon right here, just reading my mythology. Like, yes, this is it. So thank you, Carl Karsnark. 10,000 points to you for knowing about the Vulgate cycle. Yeah, my friend. Not many people do. So, okay. I'm not saying though where them comparison videos at. Yeah, I know. I'll do it. I'll definitely do a yeah. I want to do a like Alicent and Kristen Cole as Guinevere and Lancelot, because I see so much of that in them, especially like in episode 9 where she's like, for the love you bear me, or whatever the hell. And you know, you have to kind of imagine it as like if Guinevere and Lancelot are in love and they're having their love affair and all of this kind of stuff. And in some of these stories, Arthur is an older king and Guinevere is like a young queen. So he kind of like lets it slide and lets it happen because it makes her happy. And as long as she's happy, he's happy. And then, then we got to kind of imagine, okay, well, what if Arthur died and Guinevere and Lancelot were left to pick up the pieces? And that's kind of what we get with Alicent and Kristen, which is pretty entertaining to watch. And I'm very excited to see where it goes, because I definitely think that they are lovers. And I think that Alicent is like exploiting that relationship, because obviously she does the same thing with Larys. I don't think she and Larys are having a sexual relationship other than like his foot fetish, but she's doing what she's got to do to like kind of control that situation, because otherwise Larys would very much control that situation. He definitely has an upper hand. Girl's got to do what she's got to do, I guess. It's a little disturbing, but I don't judge Larys for his foot fetish. It's kind of easy to explain. Yeah, crispy clap them green cheeks. Exactly. She's crisping up his bacon. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Alicent knows how to cook that bacon. Yeah, it's all very... Exactly. Did you know? Okay. I don't think the foot thing is in the books either. I don't recall that one, and I feel like I would have stuck out in my mind. So, yeah, or Daemon's foot thing. That's an interesting parallel, actually. Daemon's Achilles heel, Larys's Achilles heel. Everybody's got a freaking foot fetish in this story. I don't know what's going on. So, all right, let's see. Well, let me click on a different picture and we'll see what we get, because this is just a fun surprise. See, here's Daemon curing his grayscale, flying through the fires of his, wife's dragon. Here she is blasting. There's Vhagar. So, yeah, in my opinion, Daemon is scourging his grayscale away with dragon fire. He's using his, his gifts, his dragon connection, his resistance to heat, like Daenerys has, to his advantage. And also, I want to point out, they probably don't have hairstylists in the Stepstones, but Daemon sure showed up with short hair, didn't he? So, and this is about like 2 years after the crab feeder's dead and he's been made king of the Stepstones and all of that. He shows up and he's got short hair. So I'm telling you, there's a lot of evidence, a lot of circumstantial evidence that is pointing towards Daemon having grayscale and having cured it with dragonfire, or at least keeping it at bay, which I honestly think that there is something to that as well, that he may just be like kind of controlling the symptoms, and he uses and this is going to kind of be a deep lore also. This is like dragon mythology, but he's using like his serpent wisdom. He's using his inner biomagnetism that he inherently has because he is connected to dragons and his his familial connection to dragons. So he has an easier, I think Daemon, it comes very naturally for him to access his, magic, his inner magic and his inner biomagnetism, which is very much intertwined with like serpent mythology and dragon mythology. So him accessing that to preserve his health and cure himself of these, this terrible condition. And then, he comes rolling back and he's got short hair. Well, what they missed in Game of Thrones is when Daenerys walks into the funeral pyre, she comes out, she's bald as heck. She has to grow all her hair back. They didn't show that in the show, but I think that Daemon's short hair is kind of a nod to that idea. He's also been through like the dragon fire scourging, and he just had a couple years to grow his hair back a little. But it's funny that he just goes through that one phase of having short hair and then he grows it back out long. Personally, I think short hair Daemon is hottest. But thank you, Persephone. Yeah, I throw a lot of this. I have some serpent knowledge and wisdom as I speak to you. I'm sitting here with this wonderful book, which where's this? Dancing with Dragons by DJ Conway. I highly recommend. I also own the tarot deck made by DJ Conway. That is dragon, the Celtic Dragon Tarot. And yeah, DJ Conway is excellent. She's has a lot of dragon and serpent wisdom. So she's written several books. Yes, exactly, Carl. Yeah, I agree. I think, it's a rebirth process. And, yeah, anyways, there's a lot to it. I mean, there's several examples that we see. And not only that, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Daemon has that scar on his neck that sort of looks inflamed from time to time. It's not all the time, but sometimes it's definitely more red. And it's almost kind of like when he's angry or like his energy is being expelled in a way that is not like it's like when he's shook, basically. It's like, bitch got me fucked up, like it flares up his grayscale because it's affecting his inner biomagnetism, his inner chi, his inner energy flow, when he gets thrown off. And I think he works really hard to like control that energy so that he can keep control over the grayscale. But I pulled this picture up earlier. I'll try and get to it again for you guys. There is a picture of him during when he and Rhaenyra are having sex the first time on the beach. Hold on, I'm getting there. Sorry. I could do this more cleanly, but I'm not going to. They show this, see right here. What is all that? What's all that? Scarring. Who does that look like? Jorah Mormont. All right. He's all scarred up. He's got grayscale. Guaranteed 100% he does. And that's just his scarring, and he works really hard to like heal it, maintain his inner chi and energy so that he can maintain his health. So yeah. Oh, bye AK. bye AK. Thank you for being here. It was really good to see you, hun. I hope you have fun on your trip. Yeah, his scar on his throat. Yep. So I really think there's something to that. That's where he got shot with the fire arrow and was burned. Was it? I felt like that was more in his chest than in the neck. I think I'd remember if he got shot in the neck with an arrow. That's pretty intense. Oh, you mean, his chest scarring. My bad. Okay. Good point. Okay. That could be it. You're right. He could be burnt up from that. Okay. You've got a good point there. I accept. But I have a scar that you can't see on television. Yeah, like sometimes this is. Yep. So, Sometimes these scars can be more inflamed than others. It's like depending on, whatever's going on internally. I mean, your health is really tied into like your energy, your mood, and all of that. So I feel like Damon's like a very prime example of that. So, yeah. Yeah, Persephone, you've got the prophecy scar. See, you're Damon's daughter, which is great. I love that. Yeah, Daemon definitely looks like he's been through some battle. Yeah, he is a man for sure. He's been through it, and that's part of like his silent like stoicism. He can really, he's seen some things. He's been around the block. So, let's see. Well, let me make sure I've got everything covered. The only I feel like we've been talking about Daemon quite a bit. I did have some stuff, we talked about Aemond a bit. We talked about you guys probably some of you guys might have missed it, but we talked about the Helaena and Aemond theory. Oh, here, we'll leave this one up because it's my favorite. I made this. Okay. The moment that Aemond became the Cougar fan fave. So on this note, should we talk about Alice Rivers a little bit and what we might expect from her? So yeah, I don't know who she's gonna be. I know there's the rumor of it being like what's her name? The one girl, the one actress. The Olsen twin sister, Elizabeth Olsen. Anyways, I think that's just a rumor, and regardless, whatever. I'm kind of curious if we've actually met her before, because I feel like I read somewhere there was like a rumor that she's already been introduced to the show or something. So part of me wonders if like Massaria might sort of fit in that role, but whatever. That's like dumb. Okay. But I am interested in finding out about Alice Rivers and what sort of sway she holds over Aemond. And also the fact that she says she's a strong bastard. She says she's the daughter of Lionel Strong. So what I really think is like so funny about that situation is like, okay, so Rhaenyra's children are fathered by Harwin, who's a legitimate Strong. And then but her children are bastards, whatever. But then Aemond gets together with a bastard Strong and has a bastard child with her, and she tries to claim the child as true-born. So it's all just kind of like really funny, like backwards commentary on each other, like a reflection of each other. And that's the thing with Aemond. He's like, his character does that with several different characters. But yeah, I don't know. Do you guys have thoughts on Alice, or what's going to happen with that? Or I'm interested. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. I think it's an interesting like parallel and contrast to Rhaenyra and her children, and I definitely am curious as to how Alicent's going to react to that, because she's just so high and mighty. So him as and especially considering the Aemond and Helaena theory, that if those two are together, it's like, what drives them apart to send him off with Alice? Is he, if the whole, like, if Aemond and Helaena and Jaehaerys and Jaehaera, if those are his children, is he angry with Helaena after this happens, after the future incident, above the beast of all boards? I don't know what we're calling this. Blood and cheese. Okay, you guys know. Is she bitter? Like, is Helaena angry with Aemond after that? I mean, excuse me, vice versa. Is Aemond angry with Helaena after that? And does he like reject her? And is that part of her heartache? Is that part of her choice to throw herself out the window? All of those kind of things. So we have to kind of wonder, like, what leads up to this. I firmly believe that Helaena and Aemond are, they have something going on behind the scenes. I definitely think that's the case, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The Olsen twins are still, I don't know. They looked really hungry last time I saw them. So I don't know if they are still alive, Koi Pond. Um, so yeah, let's see here. Yes, I agree. I hope we get to, I think that's one thing that's always been lacking in A Song of Ice and Fire, like, even in the books, I've gotta be honest, I want more magic. I want to see more magic. I wanna see more ritual. I want to see it. I want to hear spells and songs and all that kinda stuff. I am here for that. Like, that's my jam. And so, I feel like that's something that's been really lacking in the books and in the show. We don't get enough of that. Of course, we got like Daenerys's funeral pyre, but that's not even like explicitly said to be a ritual. Um, it's sort of just her inner like knowledge, her inner blood knowledge that she like was able to do that. So, yeah, I would love to see some magic with Alice, and see kind of like what kind of sorceress she is. What's her deal? How is she like? Is she a shadowmancer or like a what do you call him? Like what Quaithe and a shadow binder, excuse me, is what they call him. Yeah, shadow binder like Quaithe and Melisandre. What kind of is she wearing? Like we got to watch. Is she wearing like a geometric necklace or a mask or something? Some sort of geometric thing where we could be like, oh my god, she's hiding her age, because they do say in the book that she's older than she's much older than Aemond. Aemond's only like 20. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, because if she is hiding her age or something like that, then she may not be a strong bastard. She might just be saying that. I think there's a something to, I don't have it narrowed down, but I think there's something to the house of Harrenhal, whoever's the lord of Harrenhal, and the Targaryens, and their interbreeding is more successful, because we have these examples of the Targaryens having unsuccessful, like, trying to have children with these different lords and that kind of thing, and they have bad luck. Either the mother dies in childbirth, or like they just can't, they have like a monstrous birth or something. We see this like with Maegor, and all of his wives, none of whom are Targaryen, except for Rhaena, but he doesn't have children with her. But Maegor marries Alice Harroway, okay? And the Harroways, Lord Harroway's town is right next to Harrenhal. However, Lord Harroway was named Lord of Harrenhal. And then Maegor and Alice were married in a traditional Valyrian ceremony. Alice had a monstrous birth that almost killed her, but later Tiana of the Tower confessed to poisoning her. So that could have been what was wrong with her child. Versus you look at Rhaenyra and Harwin, and she was able to have a child with him. You look at Aemond and Alice, he was able to have a child with her. So these are these people that are living at Harrenhal. And I think there's something to like the Targaryens and Harrenhal and the God's Eye, and like something about that makes their, like, they can have children or more successful, basically. I don't really know all the details, and I don't know why like it is, but it's just something that I'm noticing like a pattern with. So and I find it interesting that Maegor had a traditional Valyrian ceremony that was officiated by Visenya when he married Alice Harroway, but not with any of his other wives. So it's kind of interesting. I don't even know why I'm telling you guys this. It's just something. So, all right, let's see. What do we got? Yeah, there's just I truly believe some of the Targaryens have got essentially a genetic disorder that requires them to have 2 copies of the gene to create a viable birth. Yeah, something of that nature. And I also think, I think it's a commentary on like the RH factor in blood. I think that like George is sort of making commentary on that, because in real life there's a gene or a factor in your blood that can cause a woman's body to like attack the fetus and not have it not be viable, simply because her partner does. I can't remember if it's RH positive or RH negative, but regardless, if you're not matched up, then a lot of times the woman's body will reject the child simply based on the RH factor. So it is really interesting. I think that there's something to the Targaryen lineage that is like commentary on that idea. So, all right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he has. Well, and yeah, I mean, that and the grayscale, but but yeah, no, like with Massaria. Well, actually, Massaria, she just lost the child. We don't know the exact reason why she lost the child. She was just at sea, so he kind of like blamed it on that. But it could have been something with him, and that was his first child that he lost. So I think there's something to that. And you know what I was kind of thinking about actually while I was listening to David's stream earlier when we were talking about this, is he mentioned that, I mean, and I've had the idea before that Nettles and Daemon and their connection, and maybe Nettles could be his daughter. But yeah, considering the grayscale stuff, I don't know, it all kind of like fits in a little more better. So I actually kind of am starting to subscribe to that Nettles is his daughter and he like cherishes the shit out of her, because all of his other kids are like dying, and then Balin, I don't know what's gonna happen with him and Bela and Rhaena, but yeah. Anyways. Yes. Thank you guys. You know all this stuff. Yeah. So it's interesting. I mean, there's so much, like, I mean, between this grayscale, I mean, George is not an idiot, which is so much fun because then we get to dissect this. I find grayscale to be a huge commentary on smallpox and the gray plague. There's two forms of smallpox. So I actually made a series of videos on this on another channel that I used to have called Bravosi Broadcast. If you guys want to go check it out. I don't really put videos on there. It was like my, baby channel. So, but I did make a pretty epic series on grayscale on there. So if you guys want to go take a look at it, just look on YouTube. It's around. But yeah. But did you know that the person who created the vaccine for smallpox, not necessarily created because the Chinese were practicing it for like 1,000 years before this, but the first doctor to like start giving it, his name was John Snow. Interesting. So yeah, here we go. So, and honestly, and there is some I don't know if I'm saying this right, anthropologic evidence of, or suspicion, I guess you might just say theorizing that the RH factor may actually come out of like Atlantis, out of like the Atlantean lineage. And I know that sounds crazy, but if you subscribe to Atlantis, Atlantis is, I'm very sure, is an ancient culture that was just lost. So much like we see with Valyria, or like in Tolkien's world with Numenor, so but there's distinct evidence of things like the RH factor potentially being connected to that, because of where these certain cultures, these certain pockets of people who have a very high rate of the RH factor tend to be in rather accessible places that, where the suspected Atlantean continent was, would be very accessible for them to travel to. Um, I follow this anthropologist called Robert Sepper, and he has a YouTube channel under his name, and he also has one under Atlantean Gardens. And he talks a lot about this kind of stuff. And he also talks about biomagnetism. He talks about vril power and just all kinds of really fascinating stuff that I like definitely find a lot of connections here with these ideas. So I think that George is like very educated in this like vein, you know? Yeah. RH coming from Neanderthals. True. Or it being like a key to their evolution. So, O negative, I'm O positive. All right. So, oh, thank you, Koi Pond. Yeah, go check it out. It's a weird series of videos, but honestly, it was a lot of fun to make, you know, because it ties into Shireen and her death and Jon potentially being the Night King in the future because, you know, they excluded Aegon from the show. So they cut out this whole kind of whatever. So yeah, Jon potentially being the Night King, and even Sansa and Aegon and their connection to grayscale, because I think that Sansa and Aegon are going to be engaged in the future, and John Connington has grayscale. Yeah, there's a lot to it. I think I give grayscale so much credit for this whole story. So much credit. It's like it's the crux for me. I'm like, it's grayscale. It all comes back to grayscale. So yeah. Yeah, thank you, Koi Pond. I'm sorry, I don't. Yeah, I'm on StreamYard, so otherwise I'd link you guys. But yeah, there's only one Bravo C broadcast. Me and my whole 200 subscribers on there. So I'm not asking you. I mean, if you want to subscribe, go for it. But I'm probably not going to put content on that channel anytime soon. Maybe, but you know. But there's a few good videos on there. Like I did do one actually on the Battle of Tumbleton, so that will play into the Dance of the Dragons. I did a big one on Maegor, which is essentially just kind of like his life story. I framed it as a murder mystery. And then Daenerys and her, you know, turn to the Mad Queen, and it ties into child sacrifice and like the Moloch and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a little crazy. I get a little crazy, you guys. I might be a little crazy, but that's all right. I hope you enjoy it. So yeah. Yeah, seriously, grayscale has become my new biggest interest in this series. Yeah, I'm telling you, like when I saw Daemon and the crab feeder and that situation, I was like, yes, this explains everything. I made that video on I said, Daemon 100% has grayscale, and I got like 500 views on it. And I was like, no, you guys aren't seeing this? Like, you know, so, but I think it's like so obvious, you know, and then they keep showing us these different hints, and it's kind of fun how they're like covering it up. And I'm like, no, I see what's happening, but I don't know if everybody else is like catching it. But I don't catching it. Hopefully you're not catching grayscale, but but it will be interesting to see like what they do with it in the future, if he's gonna have resurgence of it, or if it's going to affect his health in some way, or if it does affect his children, because I'm telling you, the baby Visenya, her scales looked very, very similar to Shireen's scaling, her grayscale scales. So yeah. All right, you guys. Well, I should probably start wrapping it up. It's been, you know, it's been 2 hours, 15 minutes. What? My husband's texting me. House of the Dragons sneak peek season 2 sneak peeks exclusive. Who made that? Probably someone questionable. But Anyways, sorry, my husband's traveling. He's going to Arizona right now. We live in Alaska, but yeah, so he's texting me live time. But anyways, guys, thank you all for being here. But yeah, drop your last questions in the chat and I will hopefully answer them. And you know, hopefully you've all enjoyed this and definitely go check out some of my other videos. Feel free to share this. I am so close to 5,000 subscribers right now that I would just love it if you guys would help push me over the edge and get me to 5,000. That would be amazing. It'd be a really big milestone. So share the videos, share the stream, and hopefully you guys all enjoy it. And you know, I'm enjoying making videos for you guys. Again, I wasn't planning on coming back to House of the Dragon or, you know, Thrones world, but I just couldn't resist. It's so good, you know? And I'm really into like serpent mythology. If you look at my channel, I've sort of followed the serpent road of you know, Arthurian to like, you know, divine feminine. I don't know if you guys, you know, to you guys who are here still, if you're into Raised by Wolves, I've made a lot of videos about Raised by Wolves, which was a fantastic show that I am so heartbroken is over. Because I miss making content on it a lot. So yeah, so there's stuff there if you guys want to go look at my crazy theories on that, because they're definitely a little wild and out there. But yeah, oh, thank you, Carl. So yeah, yes, I know I am a northerner. I'm a Stark at heart. But I am a hardcore Stark at heart. Honestly, it's funny because when Thrones was on, I was diehard House Stark. I was direwolf, diehard House Stark girl. Like Arya is my girl, you know? So it's kind of funny, like, as the story went on, because for some reason, like, Daenerys, I just didn't click with Daenerys. I was just like, oh, she's kind of just way too epic, you know? And Arya is way more like on my level. She's fierce and she's, you know, misbehaved and she's just a little wild child. And so, but after like, you know, studying more and learning serpent, you know, more about serpent and dragon mythology and that kind of thing, you kind of reevaluate like these stories and you kind of can see how much of it's in there and the commentary on the divine feminine. And, you know, it's just all like really beautiful. So it definitely brought me back around to it. So Westeros and Chill. She raises snakes. Ooh, I'll have to look for her. I haven't heard of her. Oh, yes. Raised by Wolves was amazing. I'm not over it. I'm like, you know, I hope that it can come back around or they finish it out some way, whether it's comic books, a cartoon, whether it's, you know, I don't care, a radio show, anything. I will take anything Raised by Wolves. I absolutely love it. I loved it so much. It was so good. So freaking good. The fact that they canceled it is such BS. Personally, I think they canceled it because of House of the Dragon. Because, you know, they can't have multiple female forward shows with giant snake creatures, you know, giant serpentine creatures. It's a little bit too much. I would have taken it. I would have taken it all. I would have a whole network of, you know, serpent woman shows. That is like my jam. That is my favorite. But you know, HBO, they can't. They can't just do what I want as much as I want it. So let's see. Oh, okay. So Girl Nettles and Westeros and Chill was on there, and she had her serpent. Ah, her albino ball python. Ooh, sexy. I love it. I miss snakes. We don't find too many snakes up here in Alaska. I lived in Arizona before though, and there's plenty down there. Let's see. Pistis Sophia. Interesting. I'll check that one out for sure. I love, you know, anything divine feminine. And yeah, again, check out Robert Sepper. Let me write it down because it's kind of a weird spelling. I'm gonna type one-handed. Robert Whoops. I'm typing one-handed, so I'm sorry, guys. This is like hella ghetto. Okay. And that is not a word. Okay, hold on. Let me move this. Okay. All right, that should come through. So yeah, definitely check out either of his channels. He's also on Instagram under Robert Sepper, and he's got some fantastic stuff. Thank you, Silver Scale. It is really nice to have you here. Definitely come back anytime. I'm gonna try and do another live stream this week. It's easier when my husband's out of town because he's always like, "When are you gonna be done? Come hang out with me." And I'm like, "Leave me alone. I want to live stream." So, but no. So I'm gonna try and go live again. And again, I'm really trying to get to 5,000 subscribers this week. You know, like I know I can do it. So help me out, guys. Share this with your friends. Try and get them to come to the streams, or at least just watch some of the videos and check it out, because, you know, I've got a lot of weird stuff to say, and that's always fun. All right. Thank you, Koi Pond. All right, you guys. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up here, and thank you, Koi Pond. And again, thank you guys so much for all being here. Everyone in the chat, Carl Carsonark, Silver Scale, Koi Pond. I know Daisy's still here. You're awesome. L Kizzle. Weren't you Lizzie last week? I know your last name. ZJ Modeste. Persephone, thank you for being here all that time. That was awesome. And Tartarus Ivy. Ooh, what a great name. I love all my Hades, you know, girls and boys. And he's, she's, and they's. I'm a big fan of Greek mythology and Hades. Okay. Like I said, I showed it earlier. I have a Hades altar right here that I just knocked crystals off of, but right next to me at all times. So so I just want you guys to know, like, this is a Hades friendly place. This is a Greek gods friendly place. So if you're into the underworld, I am. So let's be friends. So yeah. Anyone named Persephone or Tartarus Ivy is welcome here, and any other variations of Greek names. I'll take it. Yes, exactly. Hellenistic. Exactly. On that note, Helaena and Dreamfire. Anyways, Mothers of Dragons. I just made the video about that. I didn't include that, but I think that that's another proof that Helena's dragon Dreamfire is in fact the mother of Daenerys's dragons. But I didn't include that because I was like, sometimes people, I don't know if they get all my my weird stuff I do. So, but I think that there's definitely that's another commentary on the Greek mythology within the story, is the fact that Helaena is a mother of dragons. She's able to have 3 successful children and create 3 heads of the dragon. And her dragon is ultimately the mother of dragon lineage. So it's kind of like another turn of the times to the Hellenistic period versus older gods than that, like the older gods of Valyria. So if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. I think it will to you, Koi Pond. And to Persephone. I do, like, I see a lot of these kind of like big picture like parallels, and I don't know if I'm able to properly like convey what I'm trying to say. So I hope that it's coming across what I'm trying to like explain. So yeah. Anyways, Helen equals torch. Oh, Carl. Yes, I love it. Yeah, I love that. because she's the one that destroys the dragon pit. And I find that there's like an inversion of the myth, the dragon myth of like the dragons bursting forth from the moon, like an egg or whatever. They crack open the moon and the dragons burst forth, and that's where they come from. That's like their origin myth. And Dreamfire's crushing the dragon pit dome, which is egg shaped and round, is like an inversion of that myth. So it's like the birth of dragons versus the death of dragons. So I love that. All right, let's see. Yeah, exactly. Rhaenyra is one of those, and I think, yeah, like Cyrax and Rhaenyra, they're like our ultimate chthonic goddess. It's kind of like, it's almost like you can I look at Rhaenyra, Helaena, and Daenerys, or Rhaena. Like you could sort of interchange Rhaenyra or Rhaena, but as like a triple goddess situation. And you can almost see Rhaenyra as like the crone aspect of that. So, and then Helaena as the mother, and then Daenerys would be, the maiden. So, moon is egg, Khaleesi. It is known, exactly. So, all right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you all for these awesome. Oh, let's see. Hold on, Koi Pond. What do you say here? I want to see this. Hold on. I also think the connections between Hell and some of the Shadowbinders and Dragon Mothers is neat. Oh, yeah. That's great. I like that. With the mask and sort of their hidden age, and like, yeah, when Melisandre takes her necklace off and now it's like her face, the face of death, essentially. Like, I love that, because also there's kind of even a comparison with Viserys in that I find when Viserys removes his mask and he's like all just so decrepit underneath, he's like revealing the face of death. So interesting. I like that. All right, you guys. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I will try and go live again in the next couple days. Let me know if you want to, if you have any ideas of what the theme should be, if you have any questions. I'm on Instagram. I have, channel memberships here. You can always like comment on, whatever the community chat thing in here. I have channel memberships if you want to join. I have Patreon if you want to join. And again, just share the video and let's try and get me to 5,000 subscribers this week. Actually, I don't know what I'm at right now. I don't think I had like 100 people here today, but we might be getting a little bit closer. So, but I appreciate you all for being here. Definitely go check out my videos and oh yeah, see, we're almost there. I'm at 49.45, so 55 more subscribers, y'all. Help me out. But thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate you being here, and I really loved this chat. You guys were awesome. So we'll do this again. Maybe in the next stream we'll just do like a goddess, old Valyrian goddesses or something like that, and bring the girls around. We can do some dragon tarot readings. I've been considering doing a dragon tarot reading on a live stream. So if you guys are into that, I will do that. I will do that on the next one. So, oh, thank you so much, Koi Pond. That's so kind. I appreciate that. Seriously. I get a little nervous. This is actually, if you guys haven't been here from the beginning, this is my very first solo live stream that I've ever done. I've always done live streams with someone else. So, had a friend on or what have you. So, hopefully I did okay. I drank a lot of coffee, so I've been chatting it up, but I am getting a little tired, but yeah, awesome. Okay, I will do a dragon tarot reading then. We'll do that again in the next one, and we'll maybe talk about the queens and like goddess symbolism or something of that nature, if that sounds groovy to you girls and guys. And Carl, you're awesome. Thank you for being here and holding up the chat and just being awesome. I appreciate it. So thank you guys so much. And I will see you back in a couple of days. And hopefully you all have wonderful weeks and a wonderful Monday. Hopefully it treats you well. It's a good start to the week. So, all right. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. And I hope you have a wonderful night.